The Hart.
I believe, if I've seen correctly, he's pretty high on the Hugh Freeze to West Virginia train. I think so. If I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, obviously, but I believe I've seen some tweets of that nature when I've been looking around at West Virginia stuff, and obviously that would be I'm sure you've had some debates online about that, but Liberty. Circling all the way back to BYU, I mean, they smacked BYU around, man. I mean, that was a bad loss for Kalani Sitake and company. It's one thing losing to Oregon and Eugene. It's another thing to lose this game or that game. But I mean, to lose like they did to Liberty, that's another one that Liberty now puts up in their hall of wins of like Baylor game, years back, and I'm sure there's some others that are of that caliber, but that was pretty shocking, especially because Liberty wasn't even fully healthy. Like they're not even rolling out like their A's all across the board at the most important position, especially at quarterback. So, yeah, very interesting to see where the Cougars kind of go from here. But Hugh Freeze is going to be a guy inevitably that we're going to hear his name, and it's going to be a thing. There's no doubt.
Wake Forest is their only loss. Liberty lost by 1.
Yeah,
they smacked Old Dominion, who's been okay, and they beat Brigham Young badly, 41-14. I mean, and you don't hear, and they're kind of under the radar.
Well, it's because it's Liberty, and people don't want to talk about them. That's why. That. Yeah, and it's also Hugh Freeze. They don't want to talk about him. It's like kind of a double whammy, and somebody inevitably is going to overlook, and like it's like. You can't just say like, well, he did this and that was it. Like there's some complicated like nuance that you need, especially as far as like the text message thing a few months. Like there's just some nuance that's needed with the Hugh Freeze story. But he's a good coach. I mean, there's no denying that. And yeah, they're a good team that, I think a lot of people are probably fingers crossed hoping loses another game along the way because you're going to have to talk about them inevitably. But yeah, they smacked BYU around and they're good and they're not dealing, like I said, with the full deck either, especially at quarterback. So, before he got hurt, Caden Salter, the old Cedar Hill quarterback, he had a couple of good performances for them, and he's probably going to be their guy, in the future. But they're right there in the mix, and he's going to be in some carousel talk.
Yeah, and look, he's a fantastic football coach. There's no doubt about that. I think that if you wanted Hugh Freeze for your team, you're going to have to deal with a lot of because he is dichotomous, to put it mildly, when it comes to kind of how he presents himself to how we know he kind of really is when it comes to those things off the field.
He has like the fake preacher vibes.
Yeah. That's exactly.
Let's just say it. Yeah, he does.
Yeah, he's got that's exactly what it is. And I know I have a really close friend in the business who covered him in Ole Miss, and that was kind of the way they felt about him. Was like, Coach, can we just focus on
less shtick, please?
Just do this. He interviewed him every week, and it was like, Coach, just I don't need all this other stuff. Like, our listeners want to know this. And it just got to the point, especially when Hugh Freeze, the scandal hit and he got fired, it was kind of like, well, at least I don't have to deal with that anymore. Even going into the fact that Ole Miss had a lot of unknowns going forward because of when that all happened. And okay, let's make Matt Luke, who's an alum, the coach and go forward there. But that wasn't really what they were. That's a step down from a guy like Hugh Freeze, who was a mover and a shaker. Matt Luke wasn't that guy, but Hugh Freeze was moving and shaking in some circles you don't want, and that's why he's at Liberty now.
And they play Arkansas in a couple weeks.
Yeah,
so they could go
Liberty.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They could go potentially. I mean, they'd have to win on the road at Arkansas, so being on the road gives me less hope. But I mean, that's a winnable game. Like I said, they can't win that game, but yeah, I mean, if they were to win that one, I don't think you'd have any choice but to pay. Everybody across the country who hadn't been would have to pay some attention there. By the way, can I add something here on the coaching carousel? I just went to Coach's Hot Seat, like everybody's, website that you just go to kind of see. And it's not always like, I guess what you would call like how everybody else would have their list or whatever. But it's just it's a well enough guide to kind of see where like there's some scuttlebutt, I suppose. You can argue the rankings of the realism, because Jimbo Fisher's number 3. He's not getting fired by A&M. Like, they're just not going to pay that tab. Mario Cristobal's not going anywhere, but he's number 7. But he's not getting fired after this year. So, they're again, you kind of take it how you take it. But outside of, obvious big names that aren't going to be fired because of their contracts, there hadn't really been a ton of change since, week 2 of the season, really, or even the first month of the season. We're still looking at Jeff Scott. We're still looking at, maybe Bryan Harsin, if that finally, decides to go its separate ways there.
I don't know if it was Chris Vanini or Andy Staples, one of the guys, Matt Fortuna maybe, on The Athletic wrote a column about it, and they said Harsin kind of surprises everybody because they thought that would have been done already.
Yeah.
But Auburn also doesn't have an AD yet. So that's part of the reason they haven't pulled the trigger. Plus, I think they are starting to get at least a little bit aware of what everybody else in the world sees from the outside as a circus in the alumni, and they're trying to be like, that's just a myth. No, that's how it looks. That's not how it is. But when you fire a guy that quickly.
Here's some feedback, by the way, on a couple of things. And from Steve Snook, Harsin to West Virginia, get him out of Auburn. Tough to coach looking over your shoulder at boosters and alumni who wield their power far too heavily. There's maybe a handful of those schools out there that happens. John Hammond, can Auburn afford to pay off yet another coach?
Apparently so, because they're going to do it.
I think Auburn has those that kind of the boosters that can write a check, $23 million, $16 million, $12 million, or at least a couple of them that can do that.
Yeah, there's just a common theme, though, like Jimbo, Marcus Freeman's on the list. Those aren't happening. So as far as, we had a couple big jobs open up early, and it's really kind of settled down, and I don't foresee, at least, Brent Venables isn't getting fired. Steve Sarkisian's not getting fired. There's a bunch of guys who we can talk about, not having good years, but Freeman, Sarkisian, Venables, they're not going anywhere.
No.
Yeah, they're not going anywhere. It's year one. So that leaves, kind of some middle of the, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, but some less, top 25 all-time type of jobs. But, good news for Nebraska. Good news for Wisconsin, even though they're kind of in-house.
Colorado, maybe, Arizona State.
Colorado, sure. Arizona State,
By the way, Kirk Ferentz is on that list, and I don't think he's getting fired now, but I do think that there might be hey, Coach, you ever think about fishing a lot?
I think
there's talks maybe going on.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Coach. I think there's a 0% chance he ever gets fired there, unless scandal hit massively or something, because I think they've been through it over the years. At this point, there's too much of investment there. But saying all that, I do think that he at least has cracked the door open on himself.
He stepped in a big old pile of it.
I think there's a concrete vault and 10-foot doors that he could never be, penetrated. And I think that this year he's kind of allowed there to be some cracks in the armor for the first time. Maybe not for the first time. Historically, maybe I'm incorrect on that. But as far as present day, the unthinkable is now well, if he doesn't fire,
there's nothing unthinkable anymore.
Well, that's true.
In life,
but that's pretty close to it. But he's at least let the armor weaken a little bit, which he's got to be careful with that.
I reached out to the reporter that asked him the question, and Ferentz then, of course, alluded to it and talked about, well, at least I don't have to go home and be you or whatever it was.
And that was part of it.
I never heard back from him. Alan Carter, Neil Brown would have been fired if Baylor hadn't laid an egg in Morgantown, would have blown out West Virginia like they should have. From S. Michael DeHart on Hugh Freeze.
Probably
I think
on that.
There are a lot of West Virginia fans that are quickly warming up to HF. In a wet blanket, I love Bo Ward, number 16, because of him in baseball. John Hammond about the affordability. Someone said, why in the world would you want West Virginia to jump into the frying pan? That's Michael, and suggest that about Harsin to I think that was to West Virginia. Yeah.
Why in the world? I think you were just throwing that out there as a possibility.
Yeah,
right?
But Harsin also, I'll tell you this, and somebody put that out there. Harsin, we've seen him coach well at Boise State. Now, his personality in Auburn clearly did not mesh. I don't think it has anything to do with the product on the field overall, which has not been great. But I don't know if they're going to get the best version of Bryan Harsin if every day he goes home and he's like, ugh.
I think the product on the field is just average enough to where it allows them to really have some momentum behind it. I think, obviously, if they were really good, then you'd be hearing a lot less of that. So it kind of contributes to that.
Stephen Snook, just what both of you were talking about. Did Harsin go to Auburn and just forget how to coach and recruit? I don't think so. Malzahn is a totally different man after getting out of Auburn. It's a circus there year in and year out.
And absolutely right on that. Gus Malzahn does seem like he's having basically retirement, but not, still doing all the favorite parts that you love about being a football coach, but all the other stuff that you didn't enjoy is kind of out the window for the most part. And so, I do think that maybe more guys, especially as they get older in coaching, see, kind of that route and realize, especially if you've already had some pretty good previous success, that, the grass isn't always greener at the very top or what have you.